Hey everyone, so hopefully by now you have heard or gotten the news that on January 10th we will be resuming on-campus BFGs. And while we are very excited about the idea of having us all back together on January 10th and resuming on-campus BFGs, things are not going to look quite like they used to. And so, in an effort to help prepare us for what the reopening is going to look like and what to expect when we're back in the youth, I thought I'd shoot this short little video and answer for you the 5 most important questions that you need answered in order to be well prepared for the youth reopening on January 10th. So, let's get started. Number 1, what will the youth be doing? So, once we're back on January 10th, here's how things will look. Instead of having one BFG time for the entire youth, we will now have 2 youth BFG times. These will be at the 10:30 hour and the 12 o'clock hour. Now, students are expected to only attend one of those 2 times, and they will be identical versions of the same BFG. Inside the BFG, things will look largely the same as they used to. So each service will last for 1 hour, and we'll spend the first 25 minutes or so in our small groups, and then we'll transition to a 35-minute long large group lesson. However, not everything will be the same, particularly as far as social distancing goes. We will have a few things that look a little different.
Due to social distancing constraints, each youth BFG hour is limited to 40 students. When students enter their rooms, they will find an array of pre-arranged chairs. With the help of our adult leaders, students will need to quickly find their assigned circle and claim one of those chairs as their own. Students should remain in that chair for the duration of the youth BFG unless directed to move by one of our adult leaders, with the obvious exception of bathroom breaks. For middle school students who will meet initially in room 231 for their small groups, they will remain in their initial circles for the duration of the youth BFG. High school students, on the other hand, will start out in room 233 for small group and then transition to room 231 for the large group lesson. As they enter the room, they will again see several rows of pre-spaced chairs, and they will need to pick one of those and remain in it for the duration of the lesson.
So that's what to expect when you're back on campus with us. But now you might be wondering, okay, so when do you come? When are you supposed to come to Youth on Campus BFG? And the answer to that question depends upon our adult BFG rotation. So every single adult BFG has been divided into 2 groups. You've got group 1 and group 2. Group 1 will be everybody whose last name starts with the letter A and then goes to some point in the alphabet, and then everybody else goes into group 2. So if your last name is Aardvark, you will always be in group 1. If your last name is Zwingli, you will always be in group 2. And whether or not you are on rotation for a particular Sunday depends on which of the 2 groups you fall in. So if you're in group 1, then when January 10th rolls around, that is your week. If you're in group 2, when January 17th rolls around, a week after the reopening, that is your week. And the 2 groups will go back and forth like that for however long we're on this system. And the way it'll work is, if it is your week, if your group is on rotation that week, if you register by Tuesday of the week prior, so it's your rotation on that coming Sunday, if you register by Tuesday, your spot and the spot of all your children, including your students, is guaranteed. If you are not on rotation, then what we will do is we will open up registration church-wide beginning on Wednesday after all the people who are on rotation have had a chance to sign up. And whatever spots are available will be distributed on a first-come, first-served basis. So that's when you should expect to be in your BFGs. I will say, just to clear up a point of possible confusion, that everybody will continue to be able to attend on-campus worship every single week. The only thing that changes week from week is whether or not you are on rotation to attend on-campus BFG, and if you are, that gives you priority registration that week to sign up before anybody else to take one of the available spots in the BFG rooms. And so families will be treated as a unit. If you're parents or if you're an adult and you're on rotation that week, that means that your children are on rotation that week as well. So that's what we'll be doing. That's when you should come on campus. But you might be thinking to yourself now, okay, I know what we're doing. I know when I need to be there. But what about all this rotation and registration stuff? And that takes us to question number 3. How do you register? So registration will work like this. If you are on rotation, then you will receive a link via text message that will take you to a registration page. And if you click on that link and register by Tuesday, that means your spot and the spot for all your children are guaranteed and nailed down. For everybody else, when you're not on rotation that week, when you're not a priority, it's not your priority week, that means that beginning Wednesday, you will be able to register either on the church website at naobc.churchcenter.com or through the Church Center app to take up any available extra spots that are left after people who are on rotation, people who have priority week, have taken up their spots. So that is the on-campus BFG reopening in a nutshell, but there's another aspect of our BFG these days that you might be wondering about, which is our Zoom calls. What are we going to do with those? Well, that takes us to question number 4. What about Zoom? So, for the youth, the Zoom call will remain at its current time and in its current format. That means from 3:30 to 4:45 every Sunday afternoon, we will still have our NAOBC Youth Zoom BFG, and we'll teach a lesson live during that BFG and still have small group afterwards. And the reason for continuing the Zoom BFG is twofold. First off, we just realized that not everybody is guaranteed to have a spot on campus every single week. There is the chance that all our spots get filled for a particular week and some people just aren't able to make it. And secondly, we realize that some people just aren't comfortable returning on campus yet. And that is perfectly understandable and perfectly fine. And if that's the case, then we want to make sure there's some venue through which they can continue to participate in NAOBC Youth BFGs with us. And so the Zoom call, for the time being, will remain in its current time and in its current format. So finally, that takes us to our last question, which is, what should students do after they're dismissed? Now, the reason I bring this up is I think this could be one possible point of confusion and consternation for people once the reopening happens. So, after the 10:30 and noon BFGs dismiss, students, like their parents, will be released into the hallways and asked to go to their next location or make their way to their next location on their own. For some people, that'll mean they're done for the day, and so they're going to be heading out of the church. For others, that might mean they're transitioning into a worship service. But because every family has their own unique game plan, there is no one designated spot for students to go after they leave the youth. And so my recommendation, our recommendation, is that you plan ahead of time where a student should meet you once they have left the youth room. And this is especially true if you're going from youth into worship, because we now have 2 separate entrances, or we will have 2 separate entrances into the worship center, each with ushers leading families to their seats. And so in order to make sure families all find their way together in the worship center, it's best if at minimum you make sure you've communicated to your student which entrance into the sanctuary they should meet you at in order to be seated together by our ushering team. Well, that takes care of all the crucial information you need to know for the reopening on January 10th. You can find additional information in the Youth Return to Campus packet, which you should have received in the mail by now. But if you haven't received that packet, or you do have some additional questions or concerns, please feel free to contact me via email at dsmith@naobc.org or by phone call or text message at my cell, which is 502-727-7396. God bless you all, and look forward to seeing you next year.